So, good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Madam Rector, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for being with us today on this special Café Collaborations event. It is a program based on collaboration with embassies, exchange of experience and information from different perspectives. And today we'll try to focus on a perspective, on a topic of resilience and solidarity. What a day, right? Today to speak about resilience and solidarity. I'm very glad that our guests today will be the ambassadors and representatives of Nordic embassies and of the Charles University. So please let me first welcome here Mr. Tomáš Vokáč, director of Campus Hybernská, just to say a few welcoming words.
Okay, my resilience is good, but this skill is not very good. So, Your Excellencies, Mrs. Professor Rector, distinguished guests, my colleagues, my friends, welcome. It's my privilege and great honor to welcome you here in Campus Hybernská. For Mr. Ambassador from Finland, it's the first time here, so welcome, welcome here. On behalf of Charles University, we are very proud of this environment, which is designed and produced by Charles University and the municipality of Prague, and it's really unique in environment. So welcome once again. And I think that today we are going to discuss a very, very important topic: resilience and solidarity. And this topic is up to date, not today, but I think that for a very close future. I think that we all know that last year we experienced a huge tragedy at the Faculty of Letters at Charles University and Arts, and I think this is something which is closely connected with that, and which we are focusing very entirely in the future: resilience of young children, of our colleagues and everybody and society. So once again, please welcome here, and I'm really looking forward to the whole discussion. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my great colleague Milena, who is leading this Café Collaborations, and it's a great concept, and I'm very proud of having this concept here in Campus Hybernská. So once again, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And now please let me welcome the first panelists. We will do today like two panels, two debates, and you are of course, you can of course feel free to ask whatever you are interested in or a question you have. Please let me welcome now the rector of Charles University, Miss Milena Králíčková. The ambassador of Sweden, Mr. Fredrik Jörgensen, and the ambassador of Finland, Mr. Pasi Tuominen. So let's start directly. Please, Ms. Králíčková, the word is yours. What do you think about when you think about resilience and solidarity?
Good afternoon to everybody, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear guests. Well, you know, if we at Charles University currently say resilience, of course we really very much are focused on what we are trying to build at Charles University in the field of resilience of our students as well as of our teachers. But I'm sure that Lenka Henebergová, Vice-Dean of our Faculty of Physical Education and Sports, who's actually, I would say, the soul and heart of this activity, will talk about that much more in her speech in the second half during the second panel. So I will please take it as a, how to say it, a small announcement for the second panel. And I will try my best to speak about other resilience meanings at Charles University. As each university, Charles University has the main mission in research and another main mission, education. at our faculties, not only faculty of arts, faculty of law, faculty of natural sciences, we pay attention to the different kinds of resilience of the society currently. So our Vice-Rector, Eva Voldřichová Beránková, who will also be in the second panel, will speak, for example, about the things, how we look at resilience of supply chains. Because currently, if we look at resilience in general, there are many phases of that, many aspects of resilience, and at our faculties we pay attention to different kinds of this. So please, my dear colleagues will speak about resilience. Let me talk about solidarity. Charles University has 50,000 of students, 17 faculties, almost 10,000 of academics. So at first I have to say that we are here as the management of university to build solidarity inside of the institution. That's one thing. But if that works, we shouldn't forget that Charles University as a proud, almost 700 years old institution that definitely influences the Czech society, and not only Czech society, I would say is a player in the European context. We try to have solidarity as one of the key values of our academic life. You may say, most of you, some of you are students, you may say that you came to university to learn the knowledge, to get the practical experience, but I hope that you also came to Charles University because you wanted to learn about the values, or that you are part of academic family that has some values, and that the values should be clear. We are not political institution. We do not look left or right as the institution, but what is, I think, in the core of Charles University is that we are a torch for freedom. We are an institution that supports democracy. And I truly hope that you as students, as well as some of you are probably teachers, know and feel that this is something which we really have very deeply in our DNA. 17 faculties. Some of them focused on very practical things like informatics, very practical things like physics, chemistry, biology. But a very important part, a very large part of Charles University is focused on humanities and social sciences. And I would say we are proud that the education in plenty of fields of humanities and social sciences in this part of our research is really visible on an international scale. Maybe some of you here, our students, are from Faculty of Social Sciences, but I may mention other faculties as well that have students from more than 100 of countries from the world. Some of them from Europe, plenty of them from outside of Europe. And I think that it's important to say that the research that we perform is on the internationally renowned level, that we have academics who belong to highly cited researchers ranking, and that the science that we provide and that we share, that we do because of the society, because the science is always important, because it's done for the people. It should have the meaning for the society. It should be translated sooner or later, but sometimes one day to the society. So I'm really very proud that it's the research that is based on the values and does the influence of society. And maybe my last point that I would like to say, a nice example of how the Charles University researchers, academics, and students really take active part in research that should mean and lead to solidarity is my evening activity, which I will do after this panel. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be here for the second panel because there will be a launch of a new center which will be at our Institute of Economical Studies at Faculty of Social Sciences. And this center will be focused on economy, I'm sorry, I don't know the right economical terms in English. I'm really sorry about that. But the center will look at the economy from the point of view, what should be done, what should the government do to really progress in some of the economical aspects which are not intuitive, or as I would say, because as I already said, for example, the Institute of Economical Studies at Faculty of Social Sciences is really on a great level. And all of this, the research, whatever, if it's in the field of chemistry or economy, should lead to effect for society, and that's also our solidarity. So, thank you.
And for its resilience. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Králíčková. Frederik, the word is yours. What do you think about when we say resilience and solidarity?
Professor, Madam Rector, thank you so much for having us. It's always great to be able to interact with the students, and I love doing this also in a Scandinavian Nordic with Finland. Nordic context. It's always nice to get first-hand impressions of how the debate is developing in Czechia. So I'm hoping for good and difficult questions afterwards. This might come as a bit of a surprise to my colleagues, but I'm actually this time well prepared. I have a long script here for more or less, but this time I have it in writing. But I think I will leave that aside, because the interesting thing is always, I think, to get a discussion going. So I'll be rather brief in my first remarks. But before setting off, I would like to, since we are here on a Nordic basis, I would like to start with the, for us, very important concept of trust. When we are building our societies in Northern Europe, we do this very much based on the fact that there is a great trust between individuals, and also individuals have great trust in the state. If you were to ask any Swedish citizen, some 70% of them would say that they trust the fellow man. They would trust their neighbors, their colleagues, their fellow citizens to behave decently, and they would trust 70% of the population. That's quite a high number, and this says something. We have found this very important, and quite often when we compare notes in the Nordic family, because we see ourselves as a family, sometimes we describe this trust as the gold of the Nordics. This is something very important when you build a resilient society, that you can trust each other. And this trust, in turn, that stimulates democracy, resilience, solidarity, and it also is conducive to economic growth. Trust is important. And we have been able to build our societies on that basis, and that has been important to us. Now we can see that the Nordics, the whole of the European Union, and each and every individual European country is put under pressure. Something is happening. The world isn't anymore this friendly place that we thought it was. We are being challenged in various ways. And when we stood out there, we said, who will be the first one to mention the election in Washington? And it's me. And this is a case in point that we are living in a rather turbulent time. So the European Union and Czechia, Sweden, Finland, we are put under pressure. The question for us is, looking at this concept of trust, this concept, this way of building our societies, will it work as it has under these more difficult circumstances? It's not an evident. The question is how we, as good Democrats, we think we are, and we are good Democrats, are we prepared to face up to this new, rather aggressive world? And that's an important question. When we look at the challenges ahead, of course, the most important thing for all of us is the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine. This can influence the situation in Europe for many decades to come. If Russia would win, this would have terrible consequences for all of us. This would mean that millions of Ukrainians would have to live under Russian rule. Millions would be deported to other parts of Russia, most likely, and they will be replaced by ethnic Russians moving to Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians would try to avoid this scenario by fleeing to the West. and thereby creating a migration crisis again. This could happen this winter. It's essential for all of us that Ukraine actually wins. If Putin should win, we will see more of the development that we can see now with other new forces gaining ground. BRICS, BRICS Plus, Tehran, new powers emerging, trying to capitalize on the fact that Europe is perceived to be weak. We need to stand up against this. And the question is whether we can do this as good Democrats. One important thing, of course, from a Swedish perspective is the fact that we have joined NATO together with our best friends, with Finland. This is an important step, and I want to thank Pasi again for leading us along. Without your support, it would have taken us longer. Finland was the one showing more of initiative on this topic, and we are truly grateful for this. Now we are good and loyal members of NATO together. One important thing in Sweden, in our concept, in our way of thinking, is the concept of total defense. And Pasi might be alluding to this in the Finnish version eventually. But when facing new threats, we have created a new state authority. That's the State Authority for Psychological Defense. That authority has the role of preparing Swedish society for these new threats, working against disinformation, making sure that people are mentally prepared to face new threats, working against propaganda, trying to verify what's true and what's false on Instagram, on TikTok, and where have you. That authority has a very important role. The concept of total defense is important to us. It's a combination of military defense, our NATO membership, and the civilian part of defense. In these days, I think it's on its way out now, we are sending out, or the State Authority for Civilian Preparedness is sending out a brochure. It's actually a booklet by now, to all Swedish households. And the name of that booklet is If the War or the Crisis Would Come. And that book is full of good and solid advice to each and every Swede. How you prepare yourself. How you prepare yourself for a scenario with disinformation, but also with civilian crisis, with lack of foodstuffs and energy. And also, how do you prepare yourself and your family for the terrible event of a war? That book is now being sent out to each and every Swede. And that's an important thing to prepare the population mentally. There was a debate in Czechia half a year ago when Králíčková, the head of the military, he said that there might be war in Czechia, or said we need to be prepared for the terrible event of a war in Czechia. And he was heavily criticized for that. Because he was alerting people and he was worrying people, many said. But that's his job. It's his and the military's job to prepare for the war, and thereby hopefully avoiding it. So I have all sympathy for him, and we have the same type of discussions in Sweden. Also in Sweden it has been debated whether it's a good thing or not to have this brochure. I think it is. It's important to be prepared. I'm trying to be brief. So I will stop shortly. But there's one thing I'd like to mention, and that's maybe the fact that the Nordic societies are being seen as something of a role model of democracy sometimes. We have built our societies around the welfare state. We're working on this concept of trust. We are seen as good Democrats. The question is, can we answer up to the new powers coming that are much more aggressive? How do Democrats work against dictatorships? That's the big challenge. And I'd like to actually quote something. It struck me when I read this summer. It's a speech given by the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. He gave an interesting speech in London in June this year when he defined this this problem. He said, instead of offering lectures and sanctions for breaking Scandinavian standards of democracy, we need to join the competition for markets, information space, and ultimately influence. If we do not acknowledge that we are in competition with the authoritarian powers for the material and human resources of the global south, we can hardly win. So he is identifying that for us, as those Northern European Democrats, is a bit difficult to work with. We are competing. We are not with arms in hand, but we are waging a war with authoritarian regimes. And that's difficult to do for democratic states. So this, I think, is the main challenge for us in the future. How can we face more aggressive powers without losing our identity and without losing and compromising with our basic values? I hope that we can be as democratic in the future as we are now, but the world out there is becoming more and more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frederik. Thank you for your words. Pasi, the word is yours. What do you think about when we say resilience and solidarity?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for Madam Rector for organizing this event, and the Charles University, and of course Martin and Fredrik. I fully agree with everything that Fredrik says as usual. Actually, I would like to complement two small issues. You were referring to what would happen if Ukraine would lose and Russia would win. I would add to those things you mentioned, hundreds of thousands or millions would be deported to Russia. But I'm also sure that hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, even millions would also be murdered by Russians. Let's not forget that. The other comment is the booklet that the Swedish authority, MSB, is sending to all Swedish citizens. Actually, in Finland, we have the similar exercise. However, we have been courageous enough to rely only on digitalization. In Finland, the booklet will be only available in digital form. And actually you can it should be out by the end of this month in Finland, and you can pre-order a copy of it in Finnish, Swedish or English as well. Well, if we start from today's topic, resilience and solidarity. First of all, let me start from the solidarity part and have two mentions in the beginning. Today, in Finland, we are actually celebrating the Finnish-Swedish Heritage Day and showing the solidarity towards those who speak Finnish in Finland. And then, Swedish, yes. Did I say Finnish? Well, small mistake. Then the other issue is the resilience. And now I'm coming back to the elections in the USA, and just mention that what is now happening in Washington D.C. is by far the biggest comeback since Lazarus, what we are facing. Well, Fredrik quoted Sikorsky. And surprisingly enough, I also have a quote from Sikorsky. He was writing in Twitter, was it today or a couple of days ago? Well, it must have been today after the US elections, obviously. And he was writing that the time of geopolitical outsourcing is over. And this is very much a fact that we have to now realize. So we have to have the resilience and not rely that somebody else comes to rescue us and secure us. Actually, I have another quote from from Minister of Trade and Industry. He was writing also after the U.S. elections that we must stand, Mr. Vlček, in the Czech minister, we must stand on our feet and concentrate on competitiveness, the modernization of energy. We must stop dependency on strategic materials. We must do our homework in NATO and other international organizations, and we must continue to support Ukraine. The fact that the US is our main ally in trade, security, and values remains. And this, I think, is quite well said. I was prepared to tell more of the Finnish thinking on resilience. What we have the practice that we have had ever since the Second World War. So after the war, the comprehensive security and total defense concepts were introduced, like in all European countries, also in Finland. The difference between other EU member states and Finland is the fact that actually we did maintain the comprehensive security concept and total defense concept even after the Cold War. And why is that? Because in Finland we never excluded the possibility of a full-scale invasion, and we considered that a strong military, non-allied but anyway Finnish military is the key for the resilience, if there is and whether there could be a full-scale invasion. And what Russia now is doing hasn't proved our choice to be wrong, the other way around. So now, today, the Finnish total defense concept is more or less a model for other countries. I was very happy to host an event where we presented the model with the presence of Fredrik and with his kind and wise comments after the seminar. The total defense concept in Finland and the whole resilience is based on the fact that all the authorities work together, and the competencies of the authorities remain the same during the time of peace and during the time of particular conditions, or even during the wartime. So the competencies of the authorities do not change. And the coordination at all levels, three levels, which we have: the preparedness secretaries, the chiefs of preparedness, and then the permanent secretaries of the ministries and different organizations, is the key of the Finnish total defense concept. Additionally, things worth mentioning in this context are the National Emergency Supply Agency, which has been operational all the time after war, and the idea of that agency is to guarantee stockpiling of foodstuffs and fuel, medicines and other essential materials in good cooperation with private enterprises. So this is the great example of public-private partnerships. Additionally, the Finnish conscription system, which we have maintained during the time period of non-alignment, but which we are going to maintain also as member of NATO, is the backbone of the Finnish defense. It keeps the moral of the population high when everybody has the opportunity to do the military service, be boys or be it girls. So it's mandatory for boys, but voluntary for girls. And maybe two more institutions that I should mention are the national defense courses, where the Finnish society as whole gathers together for a 3.5 week event where we go through the components of the total defense concept, and in the end there is also an exercise. So this is very highly valued by Finnish CEOs of companies who will be ready to spend 3.5 weeks serving their country. So the courses have representation from the military, from the political field, from civil servants, and from businesses, and from cultural life. So this is the composition of the defense course system. And the last one I mention is the voluntary education on defense issues, which is directed to reservists, but it's also directed to women, or also those women who haven't participated, who haven't done the compulsory military service. So this is the maybe this is now enough. I've almost talked as much as Fredrik, or have I even talked more than you? So
it's very good. It's very good. No, it's absolutely good. Thank you very much, Pasi. Thank you for your words. Thanks a lot, everybody. Now we have about like 10 minutes for your questions. So please, if you have any question, if you don't, I can start. Of course, I have plenty of them, but it would be lovely if you would like to ask something to our guests. Now, okay, I'll start. We were speaking about trust to authorities, which is very important and maybe the key thing, and maybe this is very significant for Nordic countries. We saw decline of trust during the pandemic of COVID. We could see that even trust into research, trust into experts was very questioned. How can the university, which is the key actor in that, help the society to understand more what the experts are for?
Well, the field of all this loss of trust during pandemia is really broad. I will tell you one example of one very good example of international cooperation on how we really try to fight disinformation. Because, for example, during pandemia, there are plenty of examples of disinformation, the fight against vaccination and so on was based from a really large part on campaigns that were based or formed by disinformations. So at Charles University, we have now a Centre European Digital Media Observatory. It's a part of European Digital Media Observatory, and that's a European network where are, I think, basically all countries. Czech Republic is leading the one which is focused on Central European Digital Media Observatory. And I think all of you will know the main person who is behind that, who actually brought it to Prague, brought it to Charles University, and it's Václav Moravec, who is at Czech National TV, public TV every Sunday noon. Václav Moravec has engaged people from Faculty of Mathematics and Physics, people from Faculty of Law, Faculty of Social Sciences, a first medical faculty, because he has psychologists there. And there is a really cross-disciplinary team working on how does information appear, what are the factors that made them really trustworthy, and also how can we fight them. The cooperation is really large, not only Charles University, there is Czech Technical University and many other higher education institutions of Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, and just yesterday, I think, we had in Patriotic Hall the whole day conference focused on that. And one of the persons who was there was, for example, Commissioner Věra Jourová, who during her years at the European Commission, was really strong voice on how to fight disinformation and how to protect freedom and democracy, because this is something that is really like an illness, unfortunately attacking plenty of societies and countries around us.
Thank you very much. How Sweden and Finland is dealing this, because the biggest problem for the trust is that what is true and what is false is being questioned right now. Is there anything Sweden and Finland is doing on that field? You were mentioning, Frederik, this agency, this very special agency we have in Sweden, which is quite like the agency already work, but the programs are quite new. How do we act?
To describe a relationship between Sweden and Finland, we don't have any joint centers on a bilateral level, but we constantly compare notes between European member states. So there was a conference here in Prague, the European Values. When was this? European Values Summit. That was in end of September, I think. There we had a very strong participation from Stockholm, from the Psychological Defense Agency. They were here comparing notes with their Czech colleagues and with others attending that conference. And that's the way, basically, that we work with these questions. We compare notes and we try to exchange our experiences to help our partners to become stronger on this. And just by having this specific agency on psychological defense, we are in Sweden a bit unique. Not so many others have exactly that, but we can always learn from the working methods of our Finnish friends or the Baltics are also very good at countering disinformation. So we are constantly meeting to make sure that we learn from each other. That's the trick.
So to face it together.
If I may add, additionally, the Center of Excellence of NATO in Riga is also very much involved in this. But actually, the whole everything starts from education. It starts from school, and it starts from media literacy. So this is very much needed, and this is the explanation why the Russian misinformation is not flying in Finland. So it has some echo, but it is not widely accepted. This is one of the reasons why the support for Ukraine in Finland has remained at a very high level. 80% still is supporting the military support to assistance to Ukraine.
Thank you very much. This is super interesting. Any questions from the public? Yes, please.
So I would like to ask if there is any tension in Swedish society from the year 2015 when were the Syrian war, because I think the situation in Germany and in Sweden was quite similar, because Germany also accepted many immigrants, and now there is quite tension in Dutch society, maybe from the view of the party Alternative for Deutschland. So I would like to ask if there is any tension in Sweden as well.
That's a very relevant question, but the simple answer is yes. There has been a shift in national policies as regards migration. You were referring to the German example, and that's become everybody remembers the words of Angela Merkel that time when she said, "Wir schaffen das." We can manage. We can take them in. In Sweden, our then Prime Minister, he said something similar. He said, "My Europe doesn't build walls." This was a way of expressing the openness that politicians wanted to show in 2015. Now we have realized, and the Germans have realized, that it might be, and it is, certainly it's a beautiful thing to do, to open up for those coming towards you. But if you cannot integrate those people, if you cannot find jobs for them, if you can't find housing, you're not making them or your own society any favors. So this has been a big debate in Sweden, as in Germany and in many other countries. How do we best integrate the people coming to us? But one conclusion has been in Sweden that we took in that time too many. We have had difficulties in integrating them. That's why we feel that now we need to put this on hold for a while. We can't take in more people than we can integrate. And as you might have seen or heard, we have had problems with rising crime rates in Sweden, violent gangs, organized crime. This is a phenomena that partially depends on the fact that we have taken in too many who are not integrated into Swedish society. That's why they're looking for other things to make money with, as organized crime. It has been a problem, and in that sense, the political debate has shifted. And you could say that sometimes I've described it as looking at Czechia, I can see that Czechia and Sweden has actually gotten closer to each other. We were really, really open towards welcoming new immigrants in 2015. Czechia was rather closed, saying no, we don't want them. But we have seen Sweden becoming more restrictive over the last few years. We have also seen how Czechia has moved in the other direction, receiving more than 500,000 Ukrainians and integrating them into Czech society. It has been showed that those Ukrainians that are working here, they are contributing with paying taxes to Czech society. So those that have come, they actually contribute to the Czech welfare state. So I want to salute Czechia for managing this. That's quite impressive. To take in so many people and make it possible for them to actually be a part of society. I know this is still being debated. Some think that Czechia is taking in too many, but that's part of the political debate. But looking at the result, I think you've done a fantastic job in helping the Ukrainians. But the short answer to your question is yes, the debate has shifted in Sweden and as in Germany. Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, Pasi.
If you allow me to comment further, it's not about Sweden and it's not about the normal or regular migration. My comment is about the instrumentalized migration, that when Russia is pushing third country nationals to Finland. And actually this phenomenon started already 2015. And suddenly it was rediscovered from the toolbox of FSB a year ago. So Russian authorities started pushing third country nationals to Finland, and to some extent to Norway as well, by the way. So Sweden hasn't had this phenomenon because they are lucky enough to have neighbors like Finland and Norway. But it has actually affected the debate in Finland as well. And as Fredrik said, Sweden 2015 was a country that couldn't imagine building walls to its borders. And Finland was very much a like-minded country 2015 and could not imagine that we would have fences around the border stations. But as the border stations, border crossings to Russia now have been closed for, I don't even remember how long, for a year. And the only border crossing station which still is open is a rail crossing, and only for cargo traffic, not for persons at all. So the Finnish Parliament actually considered and weighted the international obligations for protecting asylum seekers and the security of Finland. and approved the Border Security Act, which actually is in contradiction with our constitution, and therefore it needed 5/6 majority to be implemented after the approval by the parliament. So this has also changed the landscape significantly.
Can I just add on or underline it? I think this is what Radoslav Sikorski is actually describing: the need for democratic states to fight against aggressive powers. The way that Finland did it is actually in violating international law and your obligations, and this shows how difficult it is. But we need to step up. Our opponents, they are speculating in the fact that those cowardly Democrats, they will never be able to counter this. They will never dare to close the border. We will create chaos in Finland. They haven't managed to, because our Finnish friends are so tough and resilient. And we need to be tougher as Democrats. But that's the challenge. How far can you go? Again, as regards disinformation, we say that we are Democrats. We never lie. We cannot use the same methods as our opponents. They have troll factories in St. Petersburg. We would never do that. Still, some European countries are now developing offensive cyber capacities. This means that we could attack our opponents in the same way that they are attacking us. The question is, should we? Could we? How far can we take this and still maintain our status of being truly democratic? That's interesting. That's really interesting. But sometimes you need to do more than is expected of you. And I think the Finnish case is fantastic. That took a long debate and a long discussion in Finland before they ended up with the new legislation, because it was contravening some of their international obligations. But they had to. And sometimes you need to put your state security before everything else. So well done.
Thank you. And if I may add one component, and this is the consensus that we have in Finland. So as Fredrik started with the trust aspect, in the Finnish political system, we still have a consensus on foreign and security policy, not on every political field, but as it comes to NATO membership, the membership in European Union, and the foreign and security policy as a whole, there is a consensus among all the parties in Finnish Parliament.
Thank you so much. I would have like 10 more questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So thank you very much. Now we have, before you leave, very nice jury, I don't know who is actually in charge of that. Are you? Tomáš is doing that. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Because we will present a very special fund, right?
Yes, thank you very much, Martin. Having our Nordic friends here and me having a second role at the Charles University as the director of Charles University Foundation, I would like to use this opportunity to launch officially the very first fund, memorial fund of Dr. Jan Dlask. And if I may, I'm going to read a few lines about Mr. Dr. Jan Dlask. One of the 14 victims of the tragic event at the Faculty of Arts of Charles University. Dr. Jan Dlask was a lover of Nordic studies. His passion for Nordic studies began in secondary school and continued with his studies in Finnish and Swedish at Charles University. Since 2002, Dr. Dlask had been teaching Finnish literature courses and translation seminars in the Finnish language and Finnish studies section, first at the Department of Linguistics and since 2015 at the Department of German Studies. He was the head of Finnish Studies section in Department of German Studies since September 2023. Dr. Dlask had always considered the promotion of his field of study to be a very important part of his work in the form of reviews relating the translation of Nordic fiction and non-fiction and various current affairs and studies, which he published on a regular basis. He also collaborated with the Scandinavian House as a guest at various literary events and discussions. And what I had heard from my great colleagues, he was a big lover of our students at Charles University. So in memory and in honor of Dr. Jan Dlask, I'm very proud to launch officially the very first memorial fund of Dr. Dlask in the foundation. And of course, as a great director of the foundation, please help us and contribute to this foundation, because this foundation will be focusing on development of Nordic studies and everything around at Charles University, not only at Charles University, but also building solidarity and resilience of our students, our teachers, and our society, which will be very needed in the future, as you have just mentioned in your great discussions. So thank you very much, and thank you for your future contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vokáč. Thanks a lot. The table will be there. You can always scan the QR code and look and read more about the fund and contribute. Thank you so much, Ms. Milena Králíčková. Thank you very much, Fredrik Jörgensen. Thank you very much, Pasi Tuominen. Thanks a lot for a fruitful debate, and we'll continue. Please applaud them. And we'll have just a short shift, so there is no pause, because it wasn't planned for you. So please, let's start another part of the debate, which will invite 3 other speakers. Unfortunately, we have no Danes today, because Mr. Felding has some family issues, so he's very sorry he cannot attend and he cannot be here with us. So, but please welcome here on the stage Mr. Christian Ødegaard, Chargé d'Affaires of the Norwegian Embassy, Professor Eva Voldřichová, Vice-Rector for International Affairs, and Lenka Henebergová, Vice Dean and member of the Rector's Board. Hello and welcome. So I think we'll start with you, Christian. How do you pronounce the name in Norwegian?
Ødegaard.
Ødegaard. Okay.
You repeat?
I'll try. Ødegaard. Ja, okay, perfect. Ødegaard, som vi skulle säga på svenska. So, welcome, please. What about your thoughts on resilience and solidarity nowadays?
It's a very big theme, actually. I share a lot of what was said in the previous panel. I think we have the same. More or less same organization, same values, same approach in all the Nordic countries. A lot of commonalities. So I will not repeat everything, but first let me thank you for organizing this event. It's great that we can have this sharing of view. Resilience seen from Norway is. I think you can explain it a bit when you look at the map. With a 200-kilometer border to Russia, or previously the Soviet Union, with a very long coast, harsh weather, harsh climates. So there are a lot of elements going into this term resilience. I was thinking about when I looked at the theme resilience, Nordic inspiration. There is actually, you could argue that for Norway, we could say resilience and Czechoslovak inspiration. This has to do with history. We talked about the creation of NATO after the Second World War and the situation in the last part of the 1940s. Norway was then founding member of NATO in 1949. And the inspiration for that came from Czechoslovakia, according to many historians. In the years after the German occupation of Norway and the Second World War, we had a very tough debate on over security policy orientation. There was a lot talking about Nordic defense cooperation, but then the coup in 1948 in Czechoslovakia, the communist takeover here, that was actually the inspiration or the decisive element for Norway joining NATO from the beginning in 1949. So, Czechoslovak inspiration. There are a lot of elements, of course, in resilience in the term. We talk about, well, two main parts, civilian part, military part. We talk about the same elements has been already mentioned, of course. Transport, and we have a situation with increased vulnerabilities, I think, in our high-tech society. We are so dependent on cyber, on IT, on electricity. What happens if there is no mobile connection? I have no money. I couldn't pay anything. Everything is with the cell phone, or I could not get transportation. I could not connect. We are so vulnerable, and it's so easy to take out over networks. There is an increased attention, increased conscious on this in Norway and in all our Nordic societies, I think. We are much more vulnerable now than we were maybe 15, 30 years ago. So this is the challenge of our modern open societies. New threats, new challenges. We have the same booklet as Sweden and Finland, of course. We have lately seen sharpened or stronger advice from our authorities as to how our population should prepare. Keep more water at home, or keep some food at home in case of emergencies. The military threat was always there, as we were part of NATO and the Western Defense Alliance, but with a new or a more aggressive neighbor in the east, of course, this has implied more emphasis on defense. We have also reached our goal, 2% of defense spending over GNP, which is quite an increase during the last years. In the 1990s, we had a period when we lived in Germany, Fredrik, and after that, with a very relaxed attitude, I would say. We didn't have any threats at all, we thought we had a modern European neighbor in the east, but that was not true for many years. So now we have a situation with high tension and totally different geopolitical map compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago. Well, I don't know how long I will keep talking. I shouldn't. It shouldn't be too long.
It's up to you. It shouldn't be like you have like 3 more minutes if you'd like. But
it's better that the audience,
of course,
ask a bit.
Yeah.
So I think I'll leave it with this. And I noted many keywords here actually. So I share the view of openness, trust, democracies, and we should stand up to authoritarian regimes and people wanting to undermine our values.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thanks a lot. We'll have a couple of questions, of course, then. But now, please, I'd like to let's speak Professor Eva Voldřichová, Vice-Rector for International Affairs here at the university. Please, your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I was a little bit afraid that I would be completely out of topic with my semiconductors and chips, but luckily you mentioned cell phones and cybersecurity and things like that. So I wanted to say a few words about the international resilience of supply chains. You may be wondering what I know about this as the Vice-Rector for International Affairs at Charles University, or as a former professor of French literature. But a few years ago, we were approached by our Taiwanese partners, and at the same time by representatives of our government and the Senate of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. And they offered our university to play a role in the newly prepared so-called multi-project. And the idea behind the multi-project is quite close to what we are talking about here today. The idea is that we live in very unstable times, and not only as a result of the COVID pandemic, also due to a number of other factors, the war in Ukraine, already mentioned here, the worsening situation in the Middle East, the intensified economic and geostrategic rivalry among world powers, and the disruption of supply chains for health, political, military reasons. So suddenly we realized that, for example, the cell phone mentioned by you is or includes parts and raw materials from 50 different countries in some cases. And if, for example, a Yemeni pirate attacks a nominally Argentine ship in the Red Sea, it will be strictly impossible to bring this mobile phone to Prague. So we are so interconnected economically in the world that any setback, any strike, any local conflict causes huge problems and market failures. So that's why our Taiwanese partners didn't want only to develop chip and semiconductor factories in Europe, but they wanted to accompany this effort by studying the resilience of supply chains, but the resilience of supply chains goes hand by hand with other types of resilience. So for us at Charles University, it's important because it's not only purely technical disciplines that are involved, but also humanities and social sciences that also come into play. So I would like to say a few words just about our 4 member faculties that are cooperating in a very good synergy within this project. So we have the Faculty of Science, which is the closest to the issue. So we have there, under the leadership of Professor Blažek, an international team that studies the circulation of raw materials, semi-finished and finished products between Europe, America, Asia, and Africa. And it's a very interesting and quite detective job to find out how a special component moves in real time around the world. And it should give our Taiwanese colleagues a clearer picture of the idea about opportunities, risks, and so on. So this is the basement. This is the thing that we need for our other faculties. We have the Faculty of Law included because there are many legal aspects of the implementation of the supply chains. For example, our colleagues examine what obstacles at the level of commercial or labor law may evade Taiwanese investors in the Czech Republic or in Europe in general. You may know that there is the so-called European Chips Act that was signed in 2022, and this document should gradually boost the development and production of semiconductor components in Europe. The EU wants to double its current share of global chip production to 20% by 2030. So our Faculty of Law is monitoring also the implementation of the conclusions of this European Chips Act in the Czech Republic and in other Central European and broadly European legislations. Then maybe you know that a very large factory for the most modern form of chips, that means those for computers or mobiles, is currently under construction in Dresden. So our Faculty of Social Sciences is studying this specific case in order to prepare some policy papers and other forms of recommendations for the Czech government. How do the Germans do to attract this type of investments? So last week, a delegation from Charles University went to the Technical University of Dresden, and we signed 2 cooperation agreements in this area. And the case of Dresden is quite interesting because it's a city completely destroyed, has been completely destroyed at the end of the Second World War, and then operating during 40 years under the Soviet-controlled rule in the German Democratic Republic. And it's quite instructive for us because after the reunification of Germany, the Saxon Prime Minister, Kurt Biedenkopf, popularly known as König Kurt, or King Kurt, decided to negotiate massive investments in research factories, startups, to make, I quote, to make Dresden the new Silicon Valley of the European Union. So we went there to see how to proceed. So our Faculty of Social Sciences is examining the case of Dresden to formulate some recommendations for the Czech state and the Czech government. And last but not least, our Faculty of Arts is focusing on education in the project because the Czech Republic is suffering from a decline in the interest of younger generations in technical fields. So everybody is using all technical devices, but young people are not so much interested in studying mathematics and physics, natural sciences or engineering. Well, maybe have some figures about it. So in high schools, teachers often discourage male and even more so female students from technical subjects and saying they are too complicated and the students wouldn't get it anyway. So on the contrary, Taiwan has a very long tradition of encouraging young people to be interested in programming, chip design, semiconductor manufacturing, and so on and so on. So we set up a program within which we are planning a series of visits by Taiwanese experts to primary and secondary schools in the Czech Republic. I think it's too late at university, in order to convince teachers and students that it's worth developing technical talent, that even women could work on semiconductors and things like that. So just to summarize, I think this idea of supply chains is quite interesting for us. For me, it was a completely new field I have never dealt with, but it allowed us to put together or to bring together cross-faculty, cross-university, cross-discipline teams that examine this issue of resilience of supply chains from multiple perspectives. And maybe the last sentence, in this whole process, the Czech Republic plays, on the one hand, the role of a student from some more advanced Asian economies, but on the other hand, we hope so that we could also serve as an instructor for other Central and Eastern European countries that want to strengthen their resilience and be less dependent on some problematic countries and their raw materials and so on.
Thank you very much. And I think that you mentioned something that even the ambassadors mentioned, and it's that the cooperation is one of the key and the most important things, like cooperation between the universities, between the experts, between the states. It's something creating a network which is resilient. So thank you very much for that. Before we pass the questions, I'd like to pass the word to Lenka Henebergová, Vice Dean and member of the Rector's Board, please.
Thank you very much, and it's my great honor to be here with you today. And because I see so many students, maybe I will start with one thought. I was just, like, it came to me. When I was 19, the Velvet Revolution came, and I was a university student, and I just studied my second grade. And when it started, it was for us something like, okay, let's have a fun. We will not go to school, and being on strike is something you can just experience. And then every other day it became more and more serious. And I remember myself standing at the main square when people started to shout Václav Havel for president. And it was really for us something we did not believe. That was like, well, that's too much, just too much. And it happened in 1 month. And I am from the generation that I believe in miracles, because I was living in a communist regime for 19 years. And I think it's difficult to imagine and it's difficult to pass, but I am really so happy that we are free at this moment. And I am so proud to be part of the democratic world, and I'm so proud to be European. And it's really something that we are talking about values today, and it is so important to protect them. And during my career, I was never like thinking that we will talk about resilience and that we will talk about danger coming from Russia. And as we were so happy that it ended, that for us it's something that we cannot even imagine that it will come back to us again. So that's my personal experience. I am very happy for our Nordic friends. When I was visiting Estonia, they were so appreciating help from Finland during the communist times. And it was something we were not aware during the communist time, how it was helpful with all this propaganda and how the propaganda was hidden. We really realized that during the freedom years. And we are also very thankful to our Swedish colleagues. And I love your approach, Lagom. Even maybe it's not always favorite in Norway, but this was something you were addressing when Czech was Czech country was not so open in 2015, and we are becoming a little bit more open, and you are maybe doing other ways, other approach at this moment. So we are actually coming to the sort of middle way and finding the right point or right balance between that. And talking about resilience, at this moment we are sharing a lot of knowledge from Norwegian friends, as the tragedy which happened in Prague at the end of last year, we were able to contact our colleagues from Norway, and we have been learning since the beginning of this year from them how to build the resilience and how to sort of change the tragedy or this experience into something which might help us in the future, and not only the Charles University but the whole society. So sorry for that little bit longer introduction, but I'm responsible for building a resilience center at this moment in Charles University, which came as idea very soon after the shooting last year. And I'm also responsible for communication with people who were impacted the most, the families who lost their members, and also for the communication with the students. And saying that, we have to think that such a big tragedy, according to research, had direct impact on 9,000 people. So it was really huge for the Czech Republic. And when it happened, we were looking at that and we said, okay, 2 years of COVID, then the war with Ukraine, and now we are facing such a horrible tragedy, but it was there, and you are facing the people who lost their dears, and it's different than something which is really far, far away. And this experience is very close what was said in the first panel. There is no time for like asking question, is this value enough, or are we lying or not? There is a really clear link, what is good and what is not good. And I think we really need to start to name the things correctly and not be afraid to say when something is not serving for the good, so we are not following and we are not doing that because it's not good for the society. So this experience is really for me personally and also for my colleagues the start point for building resilience. Without solidarity, there wouldn't be any resilience regarding to the tragedy. At this moment, the Charles University was lucky that the fund was open and we were able to help many people financially. We also contacted our Belgian colleagues, and their experience was completely different because there was nothing like that. And until now, even they are 8 years after the tragedy, they are really trying hard to support financially the victims. This is really, we are really lucky in that because we have enough financial support from the society. And this is something what we always say when we see the families and when we see the injured people, that you cannot give someone money and say, okay, this is just helpful as it is. But for them, it is really helpful that it shows how much the society is feeling with them and how much solidarity was offered to them. And it is very important that they are not lost, they are not alone, and there are so many people helping them. So based on this experience, we are now building the Resilience Center, and we are really trying to work with individuals, with teachers, with academical staff, non-academical staff, with students, and we are aware that it is sort of a lifelong journey to build your personal resilience, and that we need to support really getting the skills. So the picture we are now having in our mind is that there is a sea and we cannot protect anyone from the waves, but we can provide people with surf, we can provide coaching, we can provide help, and we can be there with you on that sea. So this is our picture of the Resilience Center at the Charles University.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, very interesting. Thanks a lot. Any questions on that topic directly on your minds, on your thoughts? There is quite a lot, we are speaking quite a lot today about mental health, those questions that were quite neglected in previous years, and more are we speaking about resilience of young generation and connection between mental health and the digitalized world. How is the university and how is Norway dealing with that? If you have, Christian, some thoughts about that, is that you also feel, is that something which is really discussed in newspapers and media in Norway? Is this a huge topic as well as in the Czech Republic and other Nordic countries?
Absolutely. This is a topic of the day when you in newspapers, in media. It's I don't know whether it's true, but it seems that the number of students, scholars with mental problems, with depressions have increased. I don't know whether it's real or whether it's that we talk more openly about it. There might be several explanations. It's a big topic, and we ask why is it so? I mean, are young people weaker nowadays than we were 20 years ago, or we don't have the answers. There is some research about it, of course, but we don't have the real knowledge why, the answer to the question why. If maybe somebody else would like to comment on this, but I would also like to add another topic.
Go on, and then we'll continue.
Because I have the feeling that we talked a lot about resilience, but we didn't talk a lot about the other word here, solidarity. So maybe I could say a few words about that too. Solidarity, I think, has two elements. It's the international solidarity, where you find the Nordic countries on the top of the statistics as to what we provide to the world in official development aid. That has to do with solidarity with less fortunate countries in the global south and in developing countries. But this term also has to do with domestic aspects. We all Nordic countries have a very strong civil society, and in Norwegian we have a word dugnad, that means people contributing to a kind of common good. We wouldn't have the same level of resilience in Norway if we didn't have a strong civil society. Civil society organizations helping out when catastrophes hit, when natural disasters hit. The authorities are not able to do this task fully. We fully depend on participation from the citizens, participation from the people. So I would like to mention this under the solidarity part.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Christian. Maybe back a little bit to my question about if you have any thoughts on that, about mental health of younger generation, of us, of all of us, and the resilience on that topic.
Yes, maybe I agree that at this moment I don't have the data to comment that, but we know that the numbers are much, much higher. For Charles University in the last 3 years, we tripled our services regarding the mental support, so we know it is higher. My question as a person is the same as you were mentioning. There might be some part that young generation is much more open and much more willing actually to seek for the help. I think my generation was much more like, okay, we have to go over and just like don't look at inside yourself. And I consider this behavior not being healthy anymore. So I think today students know much more better how to express when they are not feeling well, and hopefully, I hope, they do it in earlier stages. So maybe this demand has something to do with sort of prevention, and that they are aware that they are not feeling well, so they seek help, and they are not afraid to express that. So maybe, but I don't have the data on that. We have the data that the mental health is not good in Czech Republic at all. Physical health is not good in Czech Republic at all. We know that we live longer than generation before us, but when we compare, for example, to Norway, we know that we are 10 years younger when we start to be ill. So in Czech Republic, it is something about 64, 65, when we start to be like chronically ill and we are not feeling well. And we know that our Norwegian colleagues, they are getting in this stage 10 years later. So there might be something you want to share with us, what we can follow.
No, actually, I don't have the tricks. It's
eat fish,
eat fish maybe, or live happily. We have this global scale or global index of happiness, and for some reason, I don't know why, but the Finns, they always win this competition as the world's happiest. And it's hard for us to understand that, but
yeah. But I would also, when you were mentioning solidarity and having the purpose of your life, I would think this is also one of the answers, that there is so nice sort of sharing within the Norwegian society and Nordic country society, that it might be also something, some trick to be here for the others.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
No, it was just a very personal reflection. I have many students, and I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I don't know whether the young generation is weaker, but I would say they are much less selfish than we were at our times, because if I can share another contribution, when we were at their age of, I don't know, 15, 20, the only idea we had in mind was we want to travel, because it was strictly impossible before. We want to make money. We want to become good at or excellent at our professions. So we were a generation that didn't care so much about mental health, but we didn't care so much about solidarity either. And when I see, maybe I'm exaggerating now and generalizing, but a very hopeful thing I can see among the young generation, that they are really, they care about the climate, about the planet, they care about other people. I think the solidarity is much stronger among this generation, and for me it's a very positive thing, and we would like to share it and encourage it within our university.
It definitely is. It's great. Thank you very much for saying that. Any thoughts, any questions from the audience? We mentioned, I just may have one question. We mentioned solidarity, 2015, immigration wave, and Ms. Králíčková also said that the university is non-political, but it is like torch for freedom, democracy, solidarity, equality, human rights. But don't you feel that during past years, those words like solidarity, mentioning the immigration waves and other topics, became somehow political questions, political issues? Or while speaking about human rights, when I grew up in the 90s, so human rights were something which was like taken for granted. It was like clear, everyone is for equal human rights, everyone is for equality, and it was something we were like, the word is not there yet, but will be. And now suddenly we are in the moment when human rights is, while we are like speaking about that at the embassy and communicating this from the embassy's point of view, we face sometimes this kind of backlash, you know, right? Like human rights, okay, you are caring about human rights, but we care about much more important problems. And it's like, it became somehow political issues, even the democracy. Do you feel it? Do you agree? Do you have any remarks on that? Or?
I think universities should be apolitical, but not in this sense that we shouldn't give our opinions or minds about something and support the values, but I think it's more about not to, I don't know, be in favor of this or that political party. I think that we can be apolitical in this very narrow sense of the term, but of course we are highly political when it comes to defending European values and human rights and things like that. So I don't think we could be completely apolitical in this sense of the term. And very often I must say that we have a quite strong academic diplomacy at Charles. So, for example, I don't want to enter into details, but very often we accompany Czech ministers or senators and other delegations, and sometimes we play the role of an icebreaker. For example, during the visit of Armenia and Azerbaijan, Charles University was sent by the Czech politicians to sort of break the ice and to serve as a intermediary instance. So I hope we can play a positive role in this. We are a very open environment. I think that we don't practice any censorship within university. We are quite open-minded, and I think in this sense we could a little bit cultivate a better not only resilience, but better solidarity among people. I don't know. I hope so.
No. It's great to hear that you like stay on it, and that even you sometimes also face criticism on social media or something like that, and like being criticized for being political, like to bring issues like, I don't know, LGBTQ plus questions or something like that, but that the university like stands on those positions. It's
necessary.
Right. Yeah, it's great. Any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think it's impossible for an academics or for a university to be totally apolitical. It's not possible at all, because you have your foundation, your fundament, and you operate in a society, in a framework. I don't say you have to be party political, but you operate in an environment anyway, and this has to do with the question whether research should be independent or not, and how independent, who pays for the research, do you create the research results for somebody that where you need funding, do you then kind of alleviate or orient your research in that direction or that direction? So this is politics, actually.
Interesting, thank you. We have time for one last question, so please, if there is one in the public, in the audience, anything you'd like to ask our guests? Yes, please, they're back again.
I would like to ask, how is it in Norway with integrating Samic students in schools? Because I know that, their traditions are quite different.
Thank you.
You said Sami students? Yeah. I think...
Sorry, Christian, you can think about it, but I'll just say to the students, never heard about it. Sami is the minority in the northern countries, in Norway, Sweden and Finland, living the Indulge society, living up north.
Yeah. It's the indigenous people in the north in the three Scandinavian, or Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia, actually. And with their own cultural background, own language, and with a history of being oppressed from the majority in our societies, with a lot of, it's a quite violent history actually, when you look back, very harsh oppression of this minority or these minorities. So only in the last maybe 30 years we started to recognize their minority rights and creating own parliament and own political structures for them. As to the specific question how they are integrated in the universities, or of course as smaller minorities they are not able to get the same number of different possibilities when they are to study at the universities. I mean, there is no particular Sami program in all subjects. That's not possible. But there are, especially at the university in Tromsø, in northern Norway, there are Sami programs, Sami studies. But of course, as the number of Sami students is limited, so we would not, and probably we will never see the same offer for them as we have for Norwegian students or English-speaking students. That's for sure. But thank you for the question anyway.
Thank you very much, Christian. So I think that's it. We're wrapping up. We'll have some refreshment there, thanks to the university and to the contribution from different embassies. So we can continue in the dialogue. We can go on with the debate. Please, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Christian. The God? No,
Quite good.
Okay, perfect. Next time. Professor Eva Voldřichová and Lenka Henebergová, thank you very much for being our guests. And I'd like to thank you, our audience. Thank you a lot. Thank you very much for being with us, and have a nice evening. Goodbye.